Thank you.
What a wonderful introduction. Simon has a way of getting to the core of this. I'm facing a bit of a dilemma because the way I've got the lights set up in my office here doesn't work in terms of you being able to see me. And it is a bit cloudy today, so it's a little hard for me to see my notes. So I'm going to wear my glasses, which David has assured me are not as bright as the glare off the top of my head. So I hope that you can adjust to that as it occurs.
You just appear to be a being of light, dear Tom.
Yes, well, that's the whole point. All of us are. 2020 has been the strangest of my 74 years. There may never be a time like 2020 for me again. And I'm led to share a part of that with you this morning. For the past 4 weeks, we have been looking at the deep symbolism of the manger story, as Reverend Pam suggested that we build our manger for the Advent season. Advent means something is coming. Advent, it's time to prepare. There's going to be a new thing arriving. And Pam has done a masterful job of bringing the cosmic aspects of this season to us, looking at the past year from a very broad perspective. For those of you who had a chance to participate in our Christmas Eve service, she shared a magnificent summary of that. This morning, I'd like to touch again on that theme, but not from a macrocosmic point of view, but a microcosmic. As we now move from Advent into the season which is known in the church as Epiphany, that kind of ties in with the actual visit of the Magi to the manger, or to wherever Mary and Joseph had gone to at that point. I imagine by then they'd found a place to stay, because like travel these days, there are some hassles if you're coming by camel or donkey or whatever from the Far East in order to get to Bethlehem. So we include them in the Christmas story, but realistically, it took them a while to get there. And Epiphany then refers to the Magi, meaning showing forth, revealing, giving an example, in the sense of these three Zoroastrian astrologers were giving an example of what their teachings and what their beliefs and followings are all about, because when they saw the sign, they responded, as the shepherds did that night on the hillside. And what I'd like to reflect with you a bit this morning is what being an example might be, a shining forth, as we look back on our 2020 experience and prepare for 2021. I may have shared this last year when I spoke with you, but mangers are very, very special for me. We have a family manger in the Drake family that it's a wooden manger about yay big. My father built by hand in the 1920s or 1930s. As far as I know, it's been there all my life. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to bring out every year. My mother gathered some initial figures, probably cost 15 cents in Kresge's back in those days. But over the years, we've added to them. A friend back in the late 60s gave me a little camel that has sand from the Sahara Desert when she visited Egypt. When my son was born, my mother made a little angel with his name on the back of it out of ceramics, and we have that up on top of the manger along with the angel that is standing right over Jesus. And over the years, we've got various animals, and we've got some straw from when we lived in Atlanta. Had a lot of pine trees, southern pine trees, and that's the base of it. And every year, it's a big deal to bring it out, have all the pieces, decide how they're going to be arranged. The kids always do it. And it's a very, very powerful tradition within my family. And so the idea of building a manger just seemed wonderful during the whole Advent time as I thought about times past and times present and how that all works. About 1977, I restored it. It was starting to fall apart, and it was, getting a little rickety, showing its age. And this summer, I started doing it again. I got the outside done, but I couldn't find all the right paints to paint the figurines, which have chipped and scraped over the years. So that's next year's project. But it's absolutely marvelous to have my grandchildren, all gather together, my family gather together. We unwrap the pieces, some of which are wrapped in newspapers from 1957. We just keep using this wrapping paper every year. And it brings this sense of continuity, this sense of here is where we have been, here's where we are now, here's where we are going. A lot of things are changing, but there are some things that always remain the same. So it's been probably close to 100 years soon that we've had this thing, and multi-generations now, 4 generations. Hopefully 5 will get to experience this. I don't know if I'm visible or not. I'm not visible to myself, but I see there's some notes that we can do that. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. The Christmas story for me, and the manger story then in particular, represents of parts of who we are in our evolving Christ consciousness. For me, the symbolism has occasioned a renewed sense of appreciation and acknowledgement of peace and joy within my own life. But most of my symbols this year have been of growing inside as much as constructing outside. The new normal still doesn't seem normal for me. I'm not sure what's going to be normal when we're done with all of this. Hopefully by this time next year, we'll be able to gather together in the building and share and greet and hug and recognize each other, even though, hopefully because we're not wearing masks anymore and all that. But this year has been strange. Self-isolation, the only being able to commute with Comcast and Zoom, and how many of these, how many Sundays we've had this now. But I want to get a little more personal about that, about the growth I've experienced inside, because that for me has been quite significant. I want to talk about John a little bit. For me, John is a showing forth of the power of prayer. John, my best male friend, roomed with me in freshman year of college. We've known each other all these years, ever since. But John has been dealing with kidney failure for the last 2 years and has been on dialysis. Very, very difficult time for him. They were in a car crash some years ago. His beautiful wife, Barbara, was blinded. John was hurt in his hip and found it very hard to move around. It's been a difficult time for them. John and I spoke weekly. I prayed daily for him. For John, he asked only for a kidney transplant so he could get on with what he wanted to do with his life. In February, he received a new set of kidneys. A miracle, because he'd been turned down twice due to his age. They worked. They worked well for him. He was going back to the gym. He was doing all kinds of things, even talking about coming out here and visiting, because they'd never been to the Northwest before. In May, his body rejected the kidneys. And it was determined that he was too weak for any more surgery. He passed in the middle of October. On my birthday, the next week after that, I'm sorry I don't have a picture right now. He sent me a sheet of paper, or the family sent me a sheet of paper, and it says, "Happy birthday to our dear and loyal friend, love, Barbara and John." All I was doing was calling him up on the phone, as I've continued to talk to Barb each Sunday, because she really feels alone now and needs the connection. So all I did was talk to him on the phone and prayed that he'd get the kidneys and that he would have what was best for him. Gosh, it really worked. There was joy, there was drama, there was peace, there was release, and this ongoing appreciation. Then there's Cara. I met Cara in 2013 at the coffee house. And we became best friends over the years. Some of you know parts of her story. In October of 2019, she fell down the stairs at her house, fractured 2 vertebrae in her neck. And as she was being treated for that, she began to have shortness of breath and heart palpitations and things like that. The doctor said that it was clogged arteries, which is amazing because this person has been very active, very extremely active, doing all kinds of things. She looked 20 years younger than she actually is. So she had cataract surgery. No, that's David. That's not Cara. So she had open heart surgery, clean out some aortas back in February. And in the process, she had a stroke, followed by infections, followed by pneumonia. She was in ICU multiple times. About last February, she was put on hospice. And finally, she was allowed to go and live with her daughter and family in Oak Harbor in May. I began to visit her in Oak Harbor twice a week. She began to improve, but remained partially paralyzed and found it very, very difficult to speak. In late summer, she spent 2 more times in facilities for respiratory issues. In September, the matter arose about where she would stay after she was discharged from the Coopville facility, which was coming up in mid-October. That was extended for a month, and in November, on November 13th, Friday the 13th, with her family's support, I became Cara's caregiver. And she's been living with me since that time. Both of our families are very, very supportive of this move. It's been quite a learning experience being a caregiver. And my heart and appreciation goes out to anybody who has experienced or is experiencing that kind of situation. It is in some ways extremely difficult physically, but extremely rewarding spiritually. Now, several folks have asked me with some astonishment, Tom, why are you doing this? It's not family. It's a friend. And I think back on what Pam told us. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Why do things like this? Why call John? Why keep talking with Barbara? Why have a non-related person in your home? Because what I've learned this year through Unity, through Pam, through Simon, through David's reading of today's word today richly explains it. We are called to be light bearers and be willing to hold this light in new ways. In short, we're called to act out our faith in the world. It is one thing to feel Spirit moving in one's life. Many of you have felt that. Many of you know that. But you know that we don't stop there. We have to say then, where do I go? Send me. I remember a time, almost a year ago now, when I was sitting doing my nightly prayers and meditation, and I finally said to myself, I've got so much love spirit. How can I possibly give it away? How can I share it at its depth? And then, okay, be careful what you ask for. We act out our faith to the world just like Jesus did, just like Buddha did, just like all the wise master teachers have done. We live it. We show it. Yeah, we talk about it. But that's not the main point. The main point is to, here is the light. Light your candle. Take it. Do it. It's one thing to feel Spirit moving in our lives, and the next part is a lot more difficult. We're called to become the light. Become the light for others. Simply as a demonstration of what we have received from the divine, the holy. This can be big. This can be subtle. This can be something that we don't even understand ourselves, maybe till years later, how it all came to fit together. And it always does fit together with that full assurance. And again, there's no coincidence, but the scripture passage that David used this morning, he didn't know this, but my text is from Isaiah. That very same passage. Beginning at verse 1. Because you are precious in my sight, and I love you. I'm about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? The presence of the divine is in truth all around us. Every moment. Every situation. You too may have begun to notice a little stirring, perhaps, some small kind of incidental moments that have nonetheless reminded you of Spirit and Spirit's constant presence, of Spirit's absolute protection. Absolute protection. Spirit's sense of irony. Oh yeah, Spirit's sense of irony. I know that God gives me nothing that I can't handle, but I'm constantly astonished at the divine assessment of my capability. And God's miracles in so many ways. Just look out the window. There's miracles all around. And one of the gifts that I am so thankful to have had this year was simply the chance of being able to look at something so subtle as a squirrel running across the driveway and, kind of saying, "Hello, squirrel." And the squirrel stops and looks at you. A connection. We are so connected with everything. It is absolutely remarkable. I'm grateful for the fact that over this Advent season, we've had a chance to see more of that light. I'm grateful that as we move into a brand new year with new opportunities and possibilities, we may even experience more miracles. Big, small, we don't know what shape or form they'll take, but it will open a door for us if we allow Spirit to move into it. We have managed, for example, to maintain ourselves as a spiritual community in the face of major social and economic challenges. The response to folks for the Festival of Lights has been absolutely remarkable. Quite frankly, more than the board even expected could occur. It's done through you and through the movements that happen within you. Think of some little miracles that have happened in your life. I'll tell you one. After 2 weeks of caregiving, for which I had not really been trained, I lost 13 pounds in 2 weeks. Never had a chance to eat. And the thought came to me at one point, well, Tom, you're on the TLC committee for Unity. Why don't you, as chair of the TLC committee, ask some folks for some TLC and some food? So I didn't have to spend all the time preparing it. And I can't begin to tell you the response. A dozen people have responded, still responding, with food, with chocolate, which is always good, with just a word of "we're praying for you. I hope you enjoy this." And wow, we have some good cooks in this congregation, I will say that. And I am so, so grateful. Just a little tiny thing. I've done it myself, but it means so much. I'm grateful for Unity. I'm grateful for TLC, and I'm grateful for all of you and all the gifts that you have shared with me. And I won't go into all the names. There's too many. You know who you are, most of you. And some of you may not know who you are. Spirit knows, and I know. And that's enough. Spread your light, bear your light, carry your light, and go in grace. Simon is going to share a song with you about that. It's an absolutely beautiful song. Incredible. And listen carefully. It's a song of blessing, a song of love, a song of peace and joy. As we begin 2021 as seekers and as a powerful, intense, authentic spiritual community. Amen.